Well, we're live. At least that's what they claim. Hi,
Yes.
everybody. Joe Chaffee with Joe Rayo on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on a Wednesday night, the 1st
Is
of
it Wednesday?
April.
It's Wednesday already.
It's Wednesday. It's Sunday again. It
Ah,
has it, it's the same old stuff. I don't know. Every day seems to be getting a little bit, maybe a little harder, a little, you know,
yeah,
it's tough. Your
yes.
choices are you sleep, you eat, you go outside in your yard, maybe you go take a walk, and then you come back and you eat, you take a nap, then you make dinner, then you do the Joe and Joe show, and then you watch a little television and you go to bed.
That's pretty much the story, isn't it? It's
And it's been like that now for how many days? I've lost track.
I lost track
When
too.
did this start? When did we start doing this?
I think it was about a little over 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so it's been 2 weeks since we've been basically confined.
Right.
Oh God.
We're going to
Well,
find for another 30 more days at least.
oh Lord, have mercy.
Yeah. It's
Just remember that you loved the person that you're with once. Okay? Just remember that. Okay? When it gets really get those moments,
uh,
well, you go in your man cave so you can disappear. So, anyway, I just had a cup of coffee after another spectacular dinner. So, before we get into weather, I must show off my meal, which today was a pork roast. It was a pulled pork roast. This is usually it's characterized either as a butt roast or a Boston butt roast, depending on what part of the country you're in. And this little piece that's cut out was me grabbing it to taste it before it was done. So I scarred it. And that was then followed by, and it pulled pretty much right apart. Also in the mix was a little sauteed yellow squash with sauteed in a little bit of olive oil and some garlic, and a couple of biscuits. So this is what it looked like on the plate, like
well,
that.
we had another round of we had another round of pork tenderloin tonight.
Oh,
Uh,
very good.
and I almost wish she we had it the other night. I could probably have pork tenderloin now for the rest of the duration of this sit-in if we had any more.
Oh,
But
I love it. You know what? And Costco, it has them. They're very cheap there. They're like $1.99 a pound. If you
yeah,
buy them in a supermarket, they're usually um, $5 or $6 a pound.
right,
But Costco has them really cheap, and then you get four of them in a package for like $8.
right.
And yeah, and I make it in the cast iron skillet. I put up a recipe in Discord. By the way, I think you hit your 700
Yes,
subscribers on
I
Joe Rayo Weather last night.
yes I did.
You did. So did you take the Discord link? Did you sign up in Discord like you said you would?
Of course not.
Yeah, of course you didn't.
I
Naturally.
had
So
things to do today, Joe.
all right. Well, I'll see. The link is there. It's in the mess in your in Messenger. So when you run out of things to do,
I almost like
by all means,
I almost feel like signing up for it and then waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to see if anybody is on that site at 3 a.m.
don't bet against it.
I wouldn't.
Don't bet against it. For those of you who don't know, we have there's an after chat. Once the live stream ends, you can go and continue the chat. A lot of folks go over to a link we set up on Discord, and that link is I'm going to put it up on the chat board for you. It's absolutely free. You don't have to be, it's not, you don't have to pay for it. That's what free means. And here it is. The link is up there. So everybody help yourselves, jump on and become part of the conversation. And one of the advantages to having it is, among other things, not only can you talk to your friends on there from this channel, but you can put up pictures. But I also notify you when the live stream is coming on. So if you don't get your YouTube notification, you get your notification on Discord. And that little sound you might hear every once in a while is somebody on Discord having a conversation there instead of being here. So, uh, weather-wise, I guess we should do that. I was going to have my.
As you're talking, do you know what I'm doing?
I can only imagine. What are you doing?
I'm connecting on. I'm signing on to Discord right now.
Oh, bless your heart.
There you go.
See, you set a good example for everybody.
Yes.
So I'm
Well,
gonna I'm gonna bring up the satellite loop because we've got this big ocean storm that I've been reading a few folks this afternoon on various uh, chat venues pointing out that this may have a little bit of a warm core to it. It might be a bit of a hybrid out there that is well east of the North Carolina coast. And if you take a look at the satellite, Joe, it's pretty, very well defined. The circulation pretty well defined, and it looks like there's some convection there trying to bubble up near the center. So. I know it's only early April, but it's very interesting that we seeing something out here like this. But it's a powerhouse. It's a 9.8, less than a 980 low, and it's going to get a little deeper. And it's going to hang around for a couple of days, and that means we're going to have to deal with cloud issues. Although today it was for most was a pretty nice day. Also, here's another example of some fog this morning back in parts of the Ohio Valley. That area of bright white clouds that just did not go away, and it's not really moving. That's low clouds and fog that are sitting out there. And other than that, we've got weak systems running around. There's a system up in the northern plains producing some snow in that area, which we'll take a look at, and a little bit of moisture coming into the southern plains with maybe one or two scattered thunderstorms there, but nothing of consequence.
and that's good. Nothing of consequence. Although tomorrow the wind should be gusting to like 30 to 40 miles an hour, but I think it's going to be just below wind advisory criteria. You think, or
Yeah, I think so. The low is far enough out. We're kind of on the edge of the gradient. Maybe out here by me, certainly I probably will see some gusts to 30 to 40, but I don't think they're going to do anything with regards to a wind advisory. If it was going to be one, although they've been fooled before, I would think that they would have put it up already. And checking the watches and warnings, they haven't. So we do have a lot of winter storm warnings up, though, for parts of Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, and western Minnesota, and an area of winter weather advisory surrounding that. And that's because of a system that's moving out of the northern, that came into the northwest yesterday, and now is moving along through the north, through Montana and Wyoming, and eventually heading up into the Dakotas with some snow there. Somebody's still getting some winter weather.
right? It did be. I guess, Joe, we can officially close the book on Central Park with 4.8 inches for this season. I hardly think now that there's any chance of seeing even a coating or trace of snow between now and the end of the month.
You had this block. If you can't do it with this block, you can't do it.
By the way, where this is the anniversary of the April Fool's snowstorm in 1997 that dumped. Now up here where I am, we got dumped on big time. It was like a 12 to 15-inch snowfall. Um,
Yeah, I don't
and
think we like down here on the coast. I don't think we got much of anything out of that.
oh, just some bit of slushy, slush at best. But I mean, up here, there were places up here, Yorktown Heights, for example, and in and around northern Westchester and Putnam, that were out of power for like 4, 5, 6 days.
Yeah,
Uh,
southeastern New England got hit pretty hard.
right,
Eastern Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and southeastern New England got hit with 1 to 2 feet in some places.
right.
But not to be. And looking at the radar, we're seeing it's fairly quiet. You're seeing some showers, and if you look at how everything is moving, of the few showers that you're seeing, some that are off the coast of Maine, those are moving northwestward. And then you've got some pop-up showers in West Virginia and Western Virginia. That's moving southeastward, and you've got a bit of an upper trough here with this, it's not doesn't quite look like this. It's a little bit further to the south, but the point is that this large ocean storm, both at the surface and aloft, is exerting an influence on the weather in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, and that's going to be one of the issues that we're going to deal with over the next couple of days. It's not a big deal. We're talking. What we're talking about basically is trying to figure out how much cloud cover we're going to have and whether there'll be some rain Thursday that moves from northern New England southwestward to maybe about New York City and coastal Jersey Thursday night into early Friday morning. I don't think it'll be much further west than that. So if you're in that zone, you may have some clouds and maybe some rain to deal with. If you're outside of that, you may have clouds, but I don't think you'll have any rain to deal with.
Hmm. That's all I have to say.
Boy, you're just loaded with info tonight. The snow across the north, you see the precip moving across North Dakota that goes all the way back into Washington and Oregon. So that's that weather system that we talked about where we have all those winter storm watches and warnings. You got a little bit of precip down in central Texas. Just want to take a look. I'm going to bring up the snow forecast map just to see what kind of snow they're looking at over there out in the west. And let's see. So yeah, not too shabby. Looking at looks like for some areas 3 to 6 across North Dakota into Minnesota. There's a couple of pockets south of I-90 near the Colorado state line coming out of I'm sorry, near the Wyoming state line coming out of South Dakota. There's a little patch there of up to about a foot of snow, and anywhere from a coating to an inch in some parts of Wyoming to up to half a foot or a bit more as you go up toward the north. Down into Colorado, looks like they're forecasting a coating to a couple of inches in and around Denver. Ruthless Goat should be happy about that. There's a 5 print southwest of Denver. And other than that, it's fairly quiet in the west for snow, and in the northeast with this system backing precip southwestward. Uh, they're looking at a coating to an inch in northernmost Maine and northern Vermont and New Hampshire. And this is going to be elevation driven too. So there might be some higher elevations that'll get a bit more. And it might not be a big surprise if you wind up seeing a little wet snow in the mix in northeastern New York and northern Vermont and the northern half of New Hampshire. Maybe this area will get expanded a little bit more if you get a robust arm of precip backing in from the northeast. Joe, systems like this you don't see too often. But when you see them, usually they do happen in the springtime when everything naturally wants to start slowing down, and you get these ocean storms, and they start to pile moisture back westward, and it's a forecast nightmare for us because the clouds come in, then some areas get into a little bit of rain, and then you go west by about 50 to 75 miles, and it might be partly sunny there, so it just makes for a difficult forecast.
Yeah, and we're in a way we're lucky actually because right now the moon is just a little bit past first quarter phase, so we're getting neap tides, not overly high, not overly low. But I might point out that next Tuesday night is going to be a full moon. It's also going to be the so-called super moon, the closest full moon of 2020, and in the days that follow. Usually the tides run a bit higher than normal, not exactly on the night of full moon, but a day or two later. And if we had had this system that's out there right now churning around next week, we would be seeing lots of advisories, I think, for coastal flooding up and down the eastern seaboard. But it is not so bad now because the phase of the moon is not quite in that position where it could cause a lot of aggravation and agitation. So in a way, we're lucky that this is kind of happening now and not happening about the middle or latter part of next week.
The surface low on the 21Z map looks like it's at about 35 at about 67 or so, 68. 9 probably down to about a 980 low. Most of the gradient is offshore, but you can see, folks, you go up to the north, you've got higher pressures as you go up into southeastern Canada, and this is the flow that we're going to be dealing with the next couple of days with generally northeast winds. We were in a good spot today for the parts of the Northeast anyway, and parts of the northern Mid-Atlantic where we wound up with a good deal of sunshine. Just going back to the satellite, you can see there's that sort of little sliver of clearing there that occurred, but there's also been some patchy clouds in the mix that are moving southward. But look up, folks, in northern New England, and you see the storm rotating out offshore. There's that arm of cloud cover that's kind of going northward toward Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. This is what's going to wind up uh, coming back around, because this storm is really going to not go very far. It's probably just going to do some kind of counterclockwise loop over the next couple of days. So this is the moisture we're watching as it backs around southwestward. And oftentimes, what happens is it'll get south to a certain point, and then drier air will get involved and the area will start to weaken. So the question is, does that happen north and east of New York City? Does it happen south and west of New York City? Makes for a difficult forecast. And while we do have these weather systems, we have these weak systems that have come into the west here, and then of course the one that's moving across the northern tier from the northwest into the plains. We don't see any major storms on the horizon. In fact, the system that's out in the northern plains, as that moves eastward, going into this weekend, it's going to weaken. So if it does weaken like it's supposed to, we can be guardedly optimistic for Saturday and Sunday, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a reason to be optimistic about that. And by the way, Keith James on the chat board is asking the question: is Joe Whitty going to be on the Joe and Joe show soon? I know there was talk about this when Joe was on the chat last week. Well, Keith, I did send via Messenger an invitation to Joe about appearing on our show, but have not gotten a response. Of course, also, I looked this morning, and you know how if you send something on Messenger to somebody, you'll see that little curled arrow
Yes.
indicates that the message was sent. You see a check mark when that message has been actually been seen, and so far Joe hasn't looked at it apparently, or if there's no, and I don't understand that because when I see something indicating that somebody sent me a message, I'll go and look at it immediately. But I guess there are some people who, when they see that little symbol that's highlighted indicating that somebody sent you a message via messenger, some
Right.
people just ignore it and don't even go to it. So
Right. So it's the equivalent of leaving
wow.
somebody. Right. Well, that's equivalent of leaving somebody a voicemail, and they check their voicemails like once a week or once a month or whatever it is. When
Yeah.
we'll set it up. He'll get back to us eventually. He's probably busy doing his work with NASA. So when he gets some free time, he knows he has an open invitation. Teleconnections, the NAO staying negative here, strongly negative right now. Kind of weakens a little, but still stays negative based on the the GFS ensembles last night, right up until the 13th or 14th of April. Then it goes neutral to very slightly positive. The Pacific North America Index is forever in a negative state. And eventually, this might be a severe weather signal for somebody in the southern plains or perhaps into the Mississippi Valley later on, as we may be getting into the weekend or next week. And the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, strongly negative, goes back to neutral to just slightly positive for a couple of days early next week, and then goes back negative in a big way for the period from the 9th until about the 15th. I know we've been talking about maybe something happening around the 9th or 10th. It's still very much it's a speculation on my part. I don't know if that's going to play out or not. We're just going to have to wait and see how these models evolve. Meanwhile, Joe, I've got the GFS. What I put up now, I'm putting the simulated satellite. Okay, the infrared simulated satellite starting with tonight. I just want to show how this system rotates around, and those are clouds, by the way. That's not the radar; those are clouds. But you see what happens. The moisture shoots up into Maine and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and then during the day tomorrow starts to back southwestward. I think we may actually have a halfway decent day, especially as you go from New York City south. It might take a while for the clouds to roll in because the cloud line seems to want to line up over eastern Long Island tomorrow morning, and it sort of takes most of the day to back westward. So maybe we'll be in good shape for at least tomorrow morning before clouds start to roll in. And then you see how it drops southward. And then, Joe, what happens is as you get into Friday morning, the low starts to really drop southeastward, and it's getting ready to move out to the east. So that arm of moisture starts to weaken. So perhaps weather conditions will start to improve later Friday afternoon in terms of getting rid of the cloud cover. And then over the weekend, the clouds that you see up over the Great Lakes, that's that northern plain system moving east, coming into the ridge position. It looks like it wants to bring in some clouds here on Sunday. Saturday doesn't look too shabby, but it looks like some clouds may be coming in on Sunday to mask some of the sunshine. I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about any precip this weekend, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it'll be a dry weekend. And again, the only difference between Saturday and Sunday will be the amount of cloud cover. I thought that Saturday would probably be the brighter of the two weekend days. Sunday's not going to be too shabby, but again, later in the day, especially, watch for the clouds to begin moving in from the west.
Can't get more blocky than what the upper air is showing right now over North America. You've got higher than normal pressures over Labrador across the North Atlantic, lower than normal pressures along 40 degrees north in the Atlantic. You went from, remember, we spent most of the winter with the fire hose jet across the Atlantic, but now you actually have some weather traffic out there, and you've got one low that is sitting way out. That is at looks like at 40 and that's 40 and 40, I believe. And then, of course, you've got the weather system off the East Coast here with the associated upper low off the Mid-Atlantic coast, and you have that jet suppressed to the south across the Pacific and into the Pacific Northwest. You've got an upper low sitting up in Western Canada. So ideal. This is not an ideal setup with regards to storm. It's certainly not ideal for storms to actually come up the East Coast. That's why this system wound up uh, going to the south and staying southeast, because believe it or not, we went from having the strongest westerly winds across the Atlantic at certain points during the last couple of months ever recorded. Now you've got the blocking set up where it's so strong everything gets suppressed too far to the south.
And indeed, Joe, just looking at the map that you have up there right now, so different, so different than it was just a few weeks ago when we had, as we've been calling it, the fire hose out in the Atlantic, with aircraft sometimes getting from, let's say, New York or parts of eastern United States to Europe in 1 to 2 hours earlier time than scheduled. But then again, you also had a strong headwind if you were trying to come back from Europe, but not so in that pattern that we have right now, because it's anything but a fire hose with those disturbances out there. The 40-40 low. I've heard of the 50-50 low, but
Now it's the
we have a
40-40
50-50
low.
low right now.
I also think, by the way, after all of this pulls out this weekend, the first part, we might actually have a few reasonably warm days starting maybe Sunday and into Monday and Tuesday of next week, where much of the area at least gets into the 60s. So that'll be nice. If we could have a couple of days where, I mean, it was another cool day here today. I mean, the sun certainly took the sting out of the air, but the temperatures were still a bit on the subdued side. But maybe we can get our readings up into the 60s as we go into early next week.
It would be nice. That would be nice.
Works for me. Okay, so just real fast, we're going to run through. There's not a whole lot of action going on tonight, folks. As, sometimes that happens where you really kind of are struggling to find things to talk about. And to be honest, given the situation that we're in, it's been a little hard to get motivated to do these live streams. I mean, we certainly come on and do them, but when there's no weather going on and you're dealing with what you're dealing with during the day, it's been just a bit problematic. So watching that rain for tomorrow in Maine and up in New Hampshire, you can see that the GFS has a little bit of that blue snow. And of course, you also could watch at the same time the snow that's coming into the plains, moving toward Minnesota. That system weakens because it's coming into this ridge position that's up in Canada, and the system just starts to die out, And meanwhile, you've got this 977 low that's backing westward to just southeast of Cape Cod. So by Friday morning, the GFS actually has some patches of rain down into southern New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley and over New York City and Long Island. And then it starts to dry up as we go through the afternoon and into the evening. So it's a little bit of a tough call. And by the way, tomorrow, as it goes into Maine and Cape and southeastern New England is going to wind up getting some pretty heavy rains out of this. I think it looks like there's a fairly solid arm of precip that backs around westward, and the winds there might get a bit on the gust on the strong side for Cape Cod, for example, and the islands.
Oh
That'll
yeah. Oh yeah. I would not be surprised if they issued a gale warning. In fact, for places just offshore, how about a storm warning with this
Well, could
monster?
be. And then after that, finally gets out Friday night. Saturday, as you said, Joe, I think probably a little bit better than Sunday because Sunday you've got this weakening system moving eastward. See, all the precip falls apart, but we may have the leftover clouds. And then Monday, they got some spotty showers on the GFS. I don't know if that's real or not, but it does look like with the high off the East Coast, we should warm up into the 60s Monday, and then maybe a better chance for some showers Tuesday or later Tuesday into Tuesday night. No big storms on the horizon for next week, at least from what I can see.
Right.
There's something at the end of next week, which would be around the 10th, 11th, that the GFS wants to take underneath us. But you know what? That's 10 days from now. We'll deal with that when we get there.
There is a coastal flood watch, by the way, for coastal, excuse me, coastal Maine, coastal New Hampshire, and along the eastern shorelines of Massachusetts, including, if I don't lose my voice, Cape Cod and Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
Javon Perry, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it. And Javon has a question. I know it's probably pointless to ask. No, it's not pointless to ask, but I'm going to anyway. Is there any more chance for snow, even if it's very minor, for the month of April? Now, remember, he's up in northeastern Massachusetts. Look, as I'm going to just say this: as long as you have some semblance of blocking showing up. Okay, let me get rid of this page here. Okay, so Javon, as long as you have some semblance of blocking in there with that negative NAO, it's not impossible if you get the right setup. I just don't know that I'm seeing anything. And now remember, we're at April 1st, so it's already long in the tooth, even up your way. So in another 2 weeks, you're really pushing the envelope here. Okay, I mean, you really, really are pushing the envelope. I know the GFS earlier today, late in the forecast period, has a wrapped up low with the dark blue snow in upstate New York and in interior New England. And you know that was on a long range, in which means that on the 18Z, it's rather likely. I didn't look that far ahead, but I'll look off camera. It's rather likely that it's not there on the 18Z. And let's see. Yep, it's not there on the 18Z. Okay, so and that takes that out of the equation. we knew that was going to happen. So yeah, the answer is, could it still happen? Yes. Do I see anything on the horizon that would lead you to have one last cheap thrill? Not at this time. And maybe a week from now we could probably put it to bed. And of course we put it to bed for our area back in late February. We threw in the towel. We brought the fat lady on the stage, and she sang her aria very early this winter, and that was that. So how about a little bit of Briller Jeopardy?
Why not?
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the latest date that New York City, as measured at the Park, Central Park, what is the latest date of a low of 32?
Oh, I'll I'll say uh, I'll say May the 9th.
Very close. May 6th,
Okay.
1891. that New York City had a low of 32. So that's the latest date for a 32-degree low
See, I said May of the 9th because
because of
there.
the 77.
Excuse me.
Because of 77.
Okay. Well, not so much that, but yeah, you're thinking about the last time they had a trace of snow
Right.
that late in the season. I said, yeah, partly because of that, but also there's a legend that goes around about I think we mentioned this last year on one of our shows, the three chilly saints of May. I can't even pronounce the three saints' names. They don't exactly roll off the tongue.
Well, go ahead, give it a whirl.
Rotavius, Antronatus, or whatever. Pasta, Pasta Vazul.
Pasta
I can't.
Fasul, very nice.
I mean, or actually Pasta Pajot. I, in fact, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm going on, and I'm going on Google.
I was doing that too.
Three Chili Saints,
Well, you
and
do it. You're on there doing it. I'm gonna.
uh, oh right, it's Meritus, Pancreas, and Pancreas and
and
Gervais.
prostate and Saint Prostate.
Yeah, I mean Gervais. I mean I know Ricky Gervais, but Merit,
All right, you know what? What did you Google?
Three early Christian saints, because their feast days are May 11th, 12th, and 13th respectively, are traditionally cold. I don't know if they were
Oh,
traditionally
so
cold.
so I'm sorry. What did you Google? The three May saints.
Three chilly saints.
All right, hold on.
In Czechoslovakia or in the Czech Republic, the three saints are collectively referred to as Ledovi Mutsi, Icemen or Icy Men.
Memeritus, Pancras, and Gervais.
Right.
Gervais, I think, is definitely how you say that. Pancras and and Mamertus.
Mamertus.
The three chili saints.
Yes.
Yeah, Ledovi Mutsi, icy men or icemen or icy men.
Right.
And Saint Sophia is known as Zophie, the ice, and then it's ... I'd have to click on Wikipedia to finish reading it. And you know what? Good for them.
In Sweden, the German legend of the ice saints has resulted in the belief that there are special iron nights, especially in the middle of June, which are susceptible to frost. The term iron nights has probably arisen through a mistranslated German source where the term Ismana, icemen, was read as Eisenmana, iron men.
When is Saint Swithin's Day?
Saint Swithin's Day is the day when I believe if it has rained for 40 days and 40 nights, or if it rains on Saint Swithin's Day,
it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights.
Correct. Which in some hot, humid, it comes in July, I believe, July 15th, I think.
Yeah, it'll work. It'll work in Florida.
Yeah, it will.
It generally will work in Florida. It definitely works in southeast Louisiana.
Right.
Because, starting in mid to late June, it rains every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Between noon and 3, you get a thunderstorm. It just happens.
Indeed.
And that's the end of that. So, all right, so we took care of Briller Jeopardy, but I actually have, our one of our other resident statisticians is Anthony Orr, who we haven't seen very much of lately, but we do, he's usually around a lot during hurricane season. So he passed off this question. How many off-season tropical cyclones have formed in the Atlantic Basin since 1851?
Oh, come on, Joe. How many since 1851?
I mean, this should just right off the top of the head. Genius that you are, you should have that.
160 years, and how many have formed in the Atlantic Basin?
Right. In off-season in the Atlantic Basin since 1851.
What do you mean in the off season? You mean from December?
So either outside of the standard hurricane season, so outside of the June to November time frame. So from December to May.
Right. That's 160 years, and I don't want the averaging and I'll say I'll say, what will I say? I remember there was one called Lily that formed a hurricane formed
Lily,
in 19,
Lily,
yeah, Lily.
Lily.
I don't want it to be it certainly is not 160.
Well, don't forget May is included here, and we've had May named storms on and off for the last 6 or 7 years.
Even April. I'll say 40.
87, believe it or not.
87. Wow.
Yeah, 87. Yeah, it's a big number. 87. And I did see, now I read this, and I'm doing this from memory, but there was an article yesterday about, well, because of let me just sort of see if I can pull it up. Uh, so, the World Meteorological Association,
The
uh, the
WO.
WMO, apparently they they were meeting. There was a meeting scheduled, and at this meeting, they were going to be talking about, among other things, whether they were going to retire Hurricane Dorian, but they didn't do it because of the everything going on with the coronavirus. They had a very very short. I think they had a phone meeting instead of getting together, and so Dorian has not been retired, but they also point out that the decision. Well, they said that the decision to retire any names from 2019, such as Dorian, won't be made until the spring of 2021. So technically, Dorian wasn't retired, but they're going to retire that name. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. But there's two other storms from last year that they might retire. Imelda, the tropical storm that went into Texas and produced the massive flooding in East Texas last September. That caused a lot of damage. That was that tropical storm that literally formed right on the coast. And the article also brings up that it's possible that they may retire Hurricane Lorenzo because Lorenzo became a Category 5 in a part of the Atlantic Ocean where they had never seen a Category 5 hurricane before, and it did have some impact when it went into Ireland and Europe. So
Right.
so those two other names may go by the board. So, rainfall totals from Imelda. And but by the way, there's a long history of tropical cyclones that never made um, uh, even a Category 1 hurricane. Tropical storms that were retired because of the impacts that they had as tropical storms. And Imelda, 30 inches of rain in several counties in southeastern Texas, and the highest total recorded was 44.29 southwest of Fannett, Texas. $5 billion in flooding damage, and some of the areas that got flooded with Harvey also got flooded by Imelda. So it was a pretty sensitive, um, very sensitive situation with Harvey only being a couple of years ago. So here, just so you know, here's another. So here's a question for you, and I can take it right now. Since the naming of tropical cyclones, since they ditched the phonetic alphabet in 1953, how many Atlantic tropical cyclone names have been retired through 2018?
Oh. You know,
The
just
number
just go,
surprised the
just going
nu-
by an average,
the
just going
num
by
the
an average,
number surprised me.
just going by an average of let's say one per year. I'll just take a shot and say like 60,
89.
89.
I was actually surprised by the number, but 89. The most retirees for a single year was the hyperactive 2005 season. 2017 joined 2004, 1995, and 1955. Each of those seasons had four names retired.
Hmm.
Only 19 seasons have not had a name retired, most recently, the season of 2014. And 25 seasons through 2018 had multiple names removed for future use.
Wow.
Okay, so now, which letter has the most retired names?
Who did the research for this?
No, I got the article in front. I don't know who did. Which letter has the most retired names?
Oh, I'd have to say be further up the alphabet. How about again a wild stab in the dark? Um, J.
Close.
I.
I.
We had like what? Isaac and Isidore and
11. Iris, Isidore, Isabel, and Ivan are part of that group. Okay.
our
The,
former director would like that.
what's the next? Yes. He must be waiting to record right now. Um, so what's the next letter?
How about H?
C.
C. Well,
Right.
Neil, obviously.
9 sea storms. And that's tied with the letter
Tied with the letter what? E?
F,
F.
also with 9.
I missed by one on that one.
9 of the ice storms have been retired since 2001 alone.
Wow.
Okay.
Well,
Uh,
we had Isidore and we had Isaac and we had Irene. Irene, we remember that one. That's
and what was the what is latest letter in the alphabet that was retired?
geez. H I J K. I'm trying to think of the names that stand out. H Hugo and I and J and K Katrina. H-I-J-K. I'm going to say Maria. Maria was
Right.
the one. Um, I don't know. P.
Wilma.
Wilma.
Yes. Wilma.
Wilma.
You
Wilma
got
was
it.
the storm,
But
Wilma was the storm that knocked Al Roker off his feet. Remember that?
that's right. Yes. We had a Hurricane Wilma, Category 5, as I remember. That was in 2005. So you had Katrina, Rita, and Wilma.
Right.
Um, and also Dennis and Stan that year. And Stan may have actually been more deadly than Katrina, believe it or not.
I don't mean to laugh. I had an assistant news director named Stan, and he wasn't very well well appreciated by the people who worked under him. So I could see why. There's a great name right there for a hurricane.
Yes, it is. So I think that pretty well wraps it up tonight.
Yes,
Uh, William
and
Hoover, where did I walk today? I actually didn't walk today. My foot was a little strained, so I decided to give it a break today. I've been walking, the last 2 days. I walked Monday and Tuesday, and I did a pretty solid walk on both those days. But I decided not to walk today because my foot was bothering me. But as long as the weather behaves itself, um, I will probably walk tomorrow. Although I'm not sure where yet. I have
and
to I have to walk where there's no people.
yeah, I was just going to say, do you feel lonely or you just don't care?
No, I put my headsets on. I put this on, plug it into my phone, and I listen to CNBC while I'm walking. So I'm educating myself about all the money I don't have.
Yeah,
And yeah, no, I don't mind walking alone. It's fine. I actually do enjoy alone time and quiet time.
do cars pass you by or?
Uh, Sometimes, but you know what? If I'm listening, the sound doesn't drown out all the outside noise, so I can hear the cars coming. And when I most of the time when I do walk, there's sidewalks, so or wide shoulders. So as long as I do it during the day, I'm not going to do it now at nighttime, of course. So
Right.
I do I let me put it this way: I feel a lot safer walking alone than when I get to the this like the local park where you can walk. But believe it or not, there's still a fair amount of people that are out there walking, and they'll walk in groups, and then they clog the you can't pass them. It's like you're not supposed to really be on top of each other. But what are you going to do? Cause a scene?
Right.
I'm not going to. I don't.
Understood. Understood.
So no other gossip at all?
No,
No.
nothing.
You know,
Just another day.
not to be
Bob Grant, as Bob Grant would say, that slams the lid on another day, ladies and gentlemen.
not to be somber about it, but I just kind of wanted to say to my if my friend Jason and Peter are watching, speedy recovery. Our friends of mine and colleagues, television colleagues in the New York metro area. One used to be, but the other one certainly still is. That had gotten the coronavirus, and they were in the hospital, one for 7 days and one for 9 days, and on oxygen. But they both were released over the weekend, and they continue to recover, so that's a good thing. I did find out yesterday that my daughter's roommate in medical school, uh, her entire family has it. And her mom is in the hospital. She was a nurse, and apparently she's been in a coma. So we send positive thoughts that she also makes a recovery. This is, I mentioned, I think yesterday or the day before, how the circle seems to be getting closer and closer, and I sort of felt it a bit yesterday. I'm feeling it a bit more today, but it's kind of tough when you get on Facebook and you just kind of scroll down. And that's another thing. Give yourself a little bit of break from all the social media noise, because it does get overwhelming, and after a while it'll fry your brain. So put the phone down, and I have to take my own advice too. Put the phone down, get off the computer for a little while, and just go take a walk and freshen your brain up a little bit. That's my advice. And
At
cook,
at three
okay?
o'clock at 3 o'clock every afternoon, I put down whatever I'm looking at on social media. When I go into the other room, turn on the TV, and if any of you have the Create channel, the WLIW channel 21 Create channel on your system, if you're on Optimum, it's on channel 133. 3 o'clock, we have Bob Ross, and if there's any person who could put you
To
into a
sleep.
calm state of mind,
Yes,
Bob Ross,
Bob
because
Ross.
the joy of painting with his happy little trees. And today he made a beautiful. You know what, Joe? It's a funny thing about Bob Ross. I sometimes end up talking to the screen. Today he had a beautiful painting. He takes contact paper and he puts like an oval on the easel on the canvas, and he paints within that hole in the contact paper a beautiful painting. Then he peels off the contact paper. Now you have the painting in an oval shape. And I say, all right, that's beautiful. Stop now. And then he has to waste the last 2 minutes by taking that big thick brush into Van Dyke brown and right in the middle of the painting making a giant tree. Why do you do that, Bob? Why? And then he looks at you with that little wink and says, "You know me. I like my trees." And he ruins, in my opinion, he ruins the painting. I mean, just watching him make this, and in the final minute or two, you know,
Bob Ross, Frank Riccio, has been vaulted to sainthood. I will say that he's
oh yeah,
he's become he's a meme sensation.
it is.
You see meme, they do those meme things with him all the time.
It's hard to believe that he has been. This July, he will be dead. He will have gone to the great beyond 25 years, and yet
Wow,
he's just as popular now, I think, than he was when
and
he
maybe
hit.
even more so.
Maybe even more
Maybe
so.
even
Yeah,
more so.
yeah.
All right, folks, let's call it a night. Everybody, remember, stay safe, social distancing, and all the rest of it. Uh, we can end this thing faster if we all do what we're supposed to do with the social distancing thing. Okay, it makes a difference. It's one less person that gets sick, one less person that has to go to the hospital, one less person that may have get it and develop a serious condition. So just be sure to do your thing to not come down with this terrible virus. All
Well,
right.
here's how I'm social distancing. Good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe. Good night, everybody.